He's supposed to be here. Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, and at this time I will call the work session for the Perry City Council for Monday, May the 4th, 2026 to order. We do have a quorum this evening. Item 3 are citizens with input. Are there anyone here this evening that would like to address Mayor and Council at this time? Thank you. Item 4 are items for review and discussion. Item 4A are appearances. Item 4A1 is the Veterans Memorial at Legacy Park. Ms. Loudermilk? And welcome back.
Thank you.
If you'd give us your name and address again, we would appreciate it.
You have it. I'm Ellie Loudermilk, president of the Perry Area Historical Society, and I live at 113 Felton Road.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and good evening to Mayor and Council and Robert. I and a few of my friends are here tonight on behalf of the Perry Area Historical Society to discuss a design for the Veterans Memorial Wall to be installed in Legacy Park, with the hopes that you will approve our design choice. This design was selected by the Historical Society board members about 3 months ago and was submitted to Clark Memorial in Macon for consideration. They have since given a pre-bid estimate for the project. I submitted a grant application in January to the Institute of Museums and Library Services that would cover most of the cost for this memorial, but we will not hear from that grant until June. Regardless of the outcome of the grant, with fundraising and a donation from the Historical Society, we are ready now to make a commitment toward this wall. In your notes, you have a picture of the World War II section of this design and a list of all the conflicts to be considered. To date, we have vetted over 1,800 names of men and women who have enlisted from Houston County for all the conflicts through the Korean War, but we're not quite finished. Our sources for research have been the Adjutant General's Office in the National Archives, military records in Ancestry and Fold 3, newspaper records of Middle Georgia, and courthouse records for Houston County. Because of the limited space in the park designated for this memorial, let's take a look at this. Yeah. Well, first of all, let me mention that this is the one that we talked about, the other day. This is the model that we voted from. This is down in Alma, Georgia, and the next one. And our layout would be more like this. We would have more conflicts in chronological order. And let's look at the schematic. Okay, in the schematic, you'll see that there are 3 or 4 walls that are angled in front of the flag display with names on both sides of the walls. While I prefer a linear, continuous wall, there is not enough space to accommodate that layout. So moving forward with the proposed layout, I would like for you to know that the conflicts will be presented in chronological order. The walls will not be devoted to a particular branch of service. We're going to list them by conflict. and a stone base will be made to support each wall. And that would match the base that's on the reflection pool. With that being said, do you have any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Not really a question, but a statement. First of all, I think that the fact that there's not enough room to do one linear wall speaks to the importance and the significance of the veterans in our community that we will be honoring through this memorial. So that's exciting to know that this will be something like no one else around us has in our community, being so military focused. I think that's incredible. So.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Loudermilk, for doing this,
You're welcome.
honoring our veterans this way. And I asked you this at the last meeting, but forgive me, I don't remember. Sources of funding are, what are the sources for this?
We are doing active fundraising from the community, but we also have an amount of money that we are donating to this. We've been fundraising for about 7 years, with discussing this for about 7 years with our visitors to the museum, and some have made donations. And so we've just put it in a separate pot of money, and we're ready to share.
Is there any amount that you're requesting from us for this, other than the space in the park?
The only thing that we've talked about are the bases, the rock bases. That's right, isn't it, Robert? I mean, this. Yeah.
Okay. Will you have if space permits, will you have a plaque honoring those of us who served but were, by the grace of God, blessed to not have to serve in a conflict?
How much is your donation?
Touche.
Certainly, we will consider. We will make this the best that it can be. Now, it may take some capital from you to make that happen. For instance, we can cover 3 walls, but if you could help us cover 4, we could do whatever we wanted to do. So absolutely, let us work together.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. What is the limitation of the height of the wall? That's a limitation how you can take it up?
We looked at 6 feet, and it would be on the block, which would probably be another 10 to 12 inches. So, that we kind of want to keep it at eye level,
Right, okay.
but it doesn't have to be.
I know we probably need it, like I said, when people come and look at it, they want to be able to see what they're looking at, unless you got to have steps to step up to go, like you said, higher. So I was just concerned about that, okay?
Yeah, I would like to avoid the steps.
Okay, then.
Any other questions?
Mr. Smith, I assume that TSW or Keckenwood, who's doing the drawings now, will incorporate this into their drawings so that the city will actually do the construction. Or the bid that goes out through the city would do the construction.
Yes, sir. I think generally this is kind of fortuitous timing. The city is pursuing the next phase of Legacy Park. Because of cost concerns, the monument walls were left out of that phase, but I think this presents a very good opportunity. If you know anything about the Perry Area Historical Society, Ms. Loudermilk, they put their money where their mouth is. They did a tremendous job with the old Sinclair station, and I would have no reason to think that this would be any other way. So if you're generally agreeable to working with them on this proposal, we would get started and have it kind of formalized and just kind of proceed from there. I think it's a very good idea.
Okay. Council members, do you have any other questions or concerns? Do we have consensus to move forward in partnership with the Historical Society as outlined by Mrs. Loudermilk? Okay. We'll start moving forward with Mr. Smith, and thank you very much for the work that you've done on this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Item 4B is the Perry Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. 4B1 is the Perry Area Convention and Visitors Bureau update from Ms. Turpin. Ms. Turpin, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Give us your name and address.
Sure.
Please.
I'm Anya Turpin. I live at 208 Shane Circle in Perry, Georgia, and I work at 808 Carroll Street. So I'm here tonight to help celebrate National Travel and Tourism Week. So happy National Travel and Tourism Week to you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come and just give you a quick update on what we are doing downstairs at Visit Perry. First things first, for those who may be listening, whether in the room or online, who aren't familiar with Visit Perry, we are funded entirely through something called hotel motel tax. So tourism funds tourism. Every dollar that we receive comes from that overnight stay that our visitors are experiencing when they come and stay in a Perry hotel, Airbnb, our campgrounds, not from local residents, property taxes, business taxes, and things like that. Wanted to provide a very quick snapshot of just our rolling report. We do try to be as fiscally responsible as possible and make sure that the money that we are bringing in, we are spending as well. But really wanted to give you a deep dive of some of the projects that we have been working on recently and some of the data that we have been going through. We have a monthly board meeting, and I wanted to provide some snapshots from some of our recent board meetings, and would encourage you, if you ever would like to come and attend a board meeting or sit in and see what we're doing, I can dive much deeper. This was a slide that I showed to my board a couple of months ago that I thought you might find interesting. So this is something called RevPAR, and it's revenue per available room. It is a measurement of health in a community when it comes to our hotel occupancy and how strong our hotels are performing. So as you can see, this is 10 years of data going back to 2015. And going from right to left, you can see that that number is mostly increasing. Obviously in 2020, you do see a slight dip. Everyone knows that reason. I don't need to deep dive into that. But overall, we have seen our RevPAR grow by almost 50% in the past 10 years. So our hotels are bringing in more money, and they are keeping more money for their businesses. One of the things that I find to be very interesting about this is that basically it continues to grow year over year. We did have a slight drop last year, and I think that everybody has felt that, not just in the hotel industry, but across the board, whether you work in restaurants, retails, it's the economy is not, the tourism is not exempt to that, and we have definitely seen that. But what we have noticed is that while international travel has dipped, domestic travel has kind of made a rebound, and we've seen more people traveling, taking day trips, weekend trips, maybe not booking those big overseas trips, but trying to stay within their state, do more staycations. And so one of the things that I don't have in this slide, but I did find very interesting, was while we are seeing a slight dip in the overall RevPAR, we've seen an increase in our year-over-year occupancy in terms of how many nights people are staying. So in the program that you have in front of you, you can actually see that people stay on average just over 3 nights when they come and visit Perry, and that number is up year-over-year from last year's numbers. Some of our recent accomplishments. So one of the things that we always like to do is keep track of how many destination guides we are distributing and putting in people's hands. We did break a record this first quarter. We distributed over 5,000 copies of our destination guide within the first 3 months of the year, and that is a personal record for Visit Perry. We're really excited about breaking that record, and we have already ordered an additional 5,000 copies to continue putting those in people's hands and inviting them to come and visit Perry. We've also made some guest appearances on local media, and we were selected by the state partner, Explore Georgia, to attend something called the Media Marketplace down in Fort Lauderdale, where we will be talking to both domestic and international travel writers and hoping that they will pick up some stories to cover about Perry. We also go on the road a lot. We spend a lot of time going to trade shows and exhibitions, and this is a very quick list of some of the places that we have been since the beginning of the year. Pretty much all around the state of Georgia, also dipped into Alabama and Florida as well, and we're just getting started. Recent advertisements, placing advertisements is a big part of what we do, whether that's digital, whether that's print, different mediums and variables. But some of the things that we have tried to really focus on recently is placing more premium advertisements. If you have ever browsed through a magazine or done anything online, you can notice that there's a lot of noise out there, and sometimes it's hard to cut through that. And so we have tried to take advantage of more premium placements whenever it comes to visitor guides, high quality magazines, online areas where we're trying to be in a premium space, or just more likelihood that people actually stop, see on it, click on it. And then also we have a couple of examples of earned media partnership. And so what earned media is where they pick up the story and we are not paying for this. We've had 2 restaurants that are featured in Savor, Georgia for the past year. The Swanson was named as one of Georgia's 50 must-try dishes for their squash casserole. And Ghost Runner Pizza was named one of Georgia's 100 favorite restaurants for 2026. And so we go through every year and we nominate restaurants, we nominate hotels, we nominate retail shops for any awards, categories, things like this that we can. So we are always excited whenever they are picked up. This week, we will also be participating in something brand new to the state of Georgia called the Georgia Media Marketplace. That's going to be taking place in Savannah, where we will be meeting one-on-one with about 20 different travel writers from across the Southeast, and again, in the hopes of getting stories, getting pitches, and just telling people about Perry. Lastly, just wanted to share a couple of awards. Back in the end of March, we did get to pick up an award at the Georgia Association of Convention and Visitors Bureau annual conference as the 2026 Tourism Innovator Award. We received that award for our free We Speak Perry program, which is an advocacy program, a hospitality training program that we built specifically to try to help train hospitality workers, the people who work at the front desk at our hotels, our restaurants, our retail shops, and train them to speak confidently about Perry, passionate about Perry. Becky and I love talking about Perry, but we're only 2 people and we can't be everywhere all the time. So we built that program to try to help build ambassadors, and we were very excited that the GACVB saw the value in that program and gave us that award for that. And then lastly, in terms of awards, we did also get notified recently that I have been selected for 40 for the Future, which recognizes 40 outstanding individuals across 13 states in the Southeast, and I will be receiving that award in September. So very excited for that. Thank you. Thank you. And then lastly, just a couple of things that we are working on internally. We are moving forward with something called RIPE, which if you're not familiar with it, that is an integration that we are building into our website that will allow the visitor who comes to our website to directly book hotels from perry-ga.gov. It costs nothing to our hotel partners, but it will help to kind of alleviate that middleman or that next step that people have to take whenever they're planning a trip. If they can go to perry-ga.gov, learn about a special event, learn about something that wants to draw them here, and then book that hotel right away, it helps to prevent them from leaking out into a neighboring community or booking a hotel just down the road that might be a little bit cheaper, or whatever reason they think they need to leave Perry. It keeps them on our site and it keeps them booking their hotels in Perry. So we're excited to see that rolling out. And then we are also in the process of restructuring our entire website from scratch. So hopefully by the summer, we will see a new website with a lot of new special features and just trying to make sure that we are keeping that competitive edge. And then lastly, we are planning a board retreat over the summer. The date tentatively for that is looking like July 23rd. We will have representation from city leadership invited to come, but if you are interested in learning more about that, please let me know. If you have any questions, feedback, thoughts, ideas, suggestions, anything like that, my contact information is there, and you all know my office is downstairs. I would love to hear from you, and thank you for your time.
Questions or comments for Ms. Turpin?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your selection
Thank you.
for 40 for the Future.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
The new wrapping on the van looks really good.
Thank you. We are very excited about that, and we will be participating in the Summer Breeze block party next week with a couple of cool new stickers and buttons that are based off of the icons that were designed for the van. So if you want to come get some new cool Perry swag, come see us at the event downtown next week.
Thank you for a job well done. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Thank you. Item 4C is the Office of City Manager. 4C1 is the first recommendation of our fiscal year 27 budget. Mr. Smith, I'm not sure whether it's going to be you or Mr. Worthington.
It's going to be me, Mayor. Unless it's difficult, then it'll be Mr. Worthington. Annie, do you have the clicker? Thank you. Mayor and Council, as you are aware, we have been working on the FY 27 budget diligently since around December or so. It's been a very good process up to this point in time. There were some adjustments at y'all's request that we took y'all up on. I think that's proven to be very beneficial, where we met with you all and, obviously met with the department heads, reviewed past expenditures, the whole swath of things. and we're ready to kind of take the budget process from an internal function to more of an external one. And it's my pleasure to present to you this evening the proposed budget from the administration for FY27. You should have received in your boxes a packet that has a binder with the proposed budget and all that stuff in it. I think everyone got one of those. Want to make sure. All right, fantastic. A number of things to go through with this, and just keep in mind that this is kind of the first step in this part of the process where you all see this, and then over the next month or so, we'll receive input from you all. We'll receive input from outside agencies and department heads, and we'll receive input from the public, of course, and ultimately coming to you all in the first part of June with a proposed budget and the resolution associated with that. And then at the meeting subsequent to that, hopefully adoption. I think that's June 16th or something like that. So we're in the home stretch, and very excited to get it done. Taking you all through the presentation, just a reminder, kind of going back on where I was just talking about with the budget process. You can see where we've come and where we're going. Right now we're in the public hearings and budget adoption process. And again, on June 2nd, you'll have your first budget hearing, formal budget hearing, and then June 16th, hopefully we'll be ready to go for adoption of the FY27 budget. This is kind of a duh sort of thing, but I'd definitely like to cover it with you all and with the public, just so everyone understands what our frame of reference is when we're going through the budget process. Of course, fiscal stability and sustainability, always a big one. We want to make sure that whatever is presented to you all and ultimately adopted puts the city in a good financial standing and allows us to continue to be a very successful local government and community. Standards of service. Our residents and our businesses here in Perry are very accustomed to a high level of service. And we want to make sure that when we're allocating funding for the next fiscal year, that funding is provided in a way so that standards of service do not decrease and preferably, increase ultimately. Our employees, of course, and I know it's kind of a cliche, but they are really our most important asset. And it's definitely a priority of mine as a city manager to ensure that our employees are well taken care of. I want the city to be able to continue to invest in our employees. I want our employees to be able to feel like they're able to take advantage of professional development opportunities and they're able to develop personally as well. Something that we increasingly see along these lines is it's a very competitive environment for workforce in local government and really particularly here in Houston County. We're directly competing against the other cities and the county, and I think we do a good job maintaining our competitiveness. And I hate to see anything done, in regards to reductions in training allocations or something like that that would cause people to possibly seek opportunities elsewhere. Probably the primary emphasis for this budget was a more effective and efficient allocation of the resources that are available. I think over time, the budget has kind of been formed and kind of snowballed a little bit and that sort of thing. So making sure that we take a step back and that we make adjustments in a way that, again, adheres to these tenets but makes sense, is practical, and is actually necessary in regards to what is being funded, if that makes sense. We want to make sure that we're as efficient as possible. We've been able to handle a lot of this without any sort of impact on our employees or any sort of impact on service provision. And a lot of that's done through administrative charges. Basically, we were in a situation, I think we're in a situation now and probably will be for the foreseeable future, where up to this point in time, the budget was very heavy on the enterprise funds paying into the general fund, right? And that has led to some of these issues that we've been seeing with being able to balance out our enterprise funds. Well, we've actually had, fair growth over the past couple of years in the ad valorem tax revenues and the property tax digest, So we're able to, I think, more allow the general fund to handle the burdens of administrative costs on its own without having costs shifted in from the enterprise funds, if that makes sense. So that's one of the primary methodologies to which we're able to handle some of those adjustments. And finally, of course, in putting together a budget, we want to make sure that it is setting the city up in a good position so that FY28 strong, FY29, and so on and so forth. Making sure that we have adequate reserves and making sure that we're keeping up with our costs as we move into the next fiscal year. Any questions on some of the goals and things associated with the budget?
Yes, sir. Maybe I heard it wrong, but on the fourth block, if you will, under allocate resources more effectively.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned you don't want to move the enterprise funds into the general fund. Did you mean to say that the other way around?
It can work both ways generally. What we've done in the past is we've relied on the enterprise funds to cover the costs associated with our operations that are typically seen as general government operations. So the enterprise funds, we're paying a significant amount of money into the Department of Finance, to the city attorney, to the city manager, to customer service, that sort of thing, because yes, those enterprise fund functions utilize those centralized government resources and operations, but it got to a point where it didn't make sense in regards to the allocations as they currently were. So they're still paying into it. Don't get me wrong, we have not eliminated that, but we have reduced it in a way that, again, helps balance out the funds. Does that make sense?
Yes. So in a sense, the enterprise funds can help the other departments if they're doing well. If they're bringing in more revenue than expenditures, then that can go into the general fund, is what you're saying.
It could.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And vice versa.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But what you did was, as I understand it, you reduced the burden on the enterprise funds this year.
Yes.
You absorb much of the cost inside of the general fund, and it's not being required to be paid for by the enterprise funds. So reducing the reality of having to go up on those rates.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Like an example would be, and this isn't exact numbers because I don't have them in front of me, but we had in the water fund, which is obviously one of the big ones that I know we're all paying attention to, had about $800,000 in administrative charges, where we were covering some of the costs associated with the centralized operations with water fund revenues, right? So we reduced that by, I think, about $300,000 or so primarily in customer service, because customer service prior to what we're proposing was covered. Customer service was funded almost wholly through the water fund. And we didn't think that made sense because customer service is utilized for a lot of different functions outside of water and sewer, if that makes sense. It's one of the primary functions, but they handle some other things as well.
Other questions or comments?
Okay. Going into the budget highlights, again, I'd like to think that what we're presenting is a balanced, responsible, and responsive budget. Of course, balancing the budget is required by state law. Revenues need to be equal to or exceed expenses, and that is what you have. No significant reductions in service levels. I know significant should probably not be in there because right now I can't really anticipate any reductions in service levels, period. Cost savings where possible. This was a big part of this process that we went through. We wanted to, and the department heads probably had a little consternation on this, but what do you have to have versus what would you like to have, right? And making sure that we prioritize necessity over other things that may not be necessary in this fiscal year. No employee benefit reductions, no new positions. And then kind of tying into that, a mid-year review relative to capital expenditures. We just wanted to see really how this budget process went, where things go with the tax digest, that sort of thing. prior to reviewing what sort of capital might be necessary for the departments. Self-sustaining enterprise funds, something that we're looking always to try and get to. And if what is proposed currently, that is generally the case. Our enterprise funds are self-sustaining in regards to what is being proposed in this budget. And then, yes, there are some modest new revenues that are being recommended, and that's an increase in the solid waste fund rates. That is an increase in water and sewer rates, and that is a new dedicated increase in the millage rate to cover debt service costs. And we'll get into that. This is the, I think, state mandated table that has to be published and put out to the public in regards to what the city is adopting for its budget. You can see it outlines all of our major operating funds and shows kind of where we are now versus where we would be should you all adopt the budget as proposed. There are highlights for each of these in your budget books. I don't want to sit here and like belabor, the numbers and stuff with you all, but kind of going through it just very briefly. General fund, about $6.8 million right now in cash, and you can see the revenues and expenditures. The other financing in this one is the transfer in from the hotel motel tax for the general fund portion, and then transfers in from water, gas, and fire for PPFA debt service. That's where that $1.8 million is. And at the end of the year, we should be at about 22% of operating funds in the reserves at $7.4 million. So looking pretty good there with what is being proposed. And yes, that is, as I mentioned, including a slight increase in the millage rate to cover debt service from the PPFA. Fire Protection Fund, we anticipate going into the next fiscal year with nothing in the reserves. Not a very good spot to be in. We are proposing revenues of $4.1 million, expenditures of about that. And then the other financing there is money coming in from the general fund to cover the residential assistance program that is for low-income persons, senior persons. And then a very slight ending cash balance there. Hotel motel is strong. You can see in the other financing, that's a transfer in from the general portion of the hotel motel tax. Water sewer, again, I know this is one that we're all certainly paying attention to. For the revenues, you have about $11.1 million in water sewer consumption being proposed, and then $1.6 million of that is connection charge, our new connection fees. And I know you're probably like, well, Robert, the expenditures here exceed the revenues. You have a significant amount of depreciation included in that expenditure. Of course, depreciation is a non-cash expense. So if you were to back that $1.9 million out of that, that's how that works cash-wise. And then actually, if moving forward with this, that would put the water sewer fund at about 25% reserves, which is 3 months operating, which is about where we want to be on that. For the gas fund, strong. I mean, it's more of kind of a pass-through function, but you can see there would be a slight increase there. There is some depreciation in that one as well. Solid waste, that is one of the funds that we've had some issues with ever since we shifted over to the Ryland contract. The revenues there would be $4.3 million in collection charges, and then an ending cash balance of 12%, which is quite low, in regards to our 25% goal. And stormwater is fine, and no rate increase proposed for that. Again, you have outlines of this in your budget book. Does anyone have any questions about kind of what's going on with the budget as is proposed currently? Okay.
Let me ask a question, Robert. The water and sewer ending cash, does it have the full amount of depreciation, or did we consume most of the depreciation in covering expenses?
Yes, sir. As it currently is proposed, it would cover about $400,000 of depreciation, so significantly less than is budgeted, shown in the expenditures.
I understand it's 1.9, and we're only going to cover 300,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ideally, we get to a spot where we can cover our depreciation. We need to generally ensure that rates cover long-term costs of replacement with some of these large assets.
Thank you.
Budgetary pressures, I know you saw this with Mr. Worthington's memo at the beginning of April in that work session. We continue to face significant increases in our costs and our inputs into our operations. I mean, that local governments are not immune to cost increases. I think everyone's seeing significant increases there. For electricity, for example, that CPI amount, at the city, we're looking at a minimum of an additional $426,000 in electricity costs going into this year.
Could I get you to flip the
Oh, yes,
slide
sorry
over?
about that. So that's obviously a lot, and we need to account for that. I heard on the news just yesterday where fuel costs are the highest they've been in 4 years on average. We utilize a significant amount of fuel. And then just some of the other inputs. Something that's getting to be quite a bear for us is software costs. We have a good number of softwares, and they're one of those deals where they kind of lock you in, and then they increase your cost, year after year, and it's very difficult to transition away from them. We really paid attention during this budget process, particularly looking at some of the rate increases in these budgetary pressures at CPI. So the CPIs that are presented throughout this presentation and the budget are from March, so it covers a March 2025 to March 2026 timeframe, and through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So we think that it is a very good indices to utilize when looking at how we cover our costs and cost increases. Going through each fund, initially coming into the budget process, we had not really considered a possible increase in the ad valorem tax. However, in discussions, it was thought that this may be a beneficial way or a more stable way to cover the costs associated with some of the PPFA debt service, in particular fire apparatus and sewer infrastructure. Thank you, Dr. Fowles. And sewer infrastructure, I'll just hold on to it. So as you can see, we are proposing a millage increase of 1.217 mils, which would generate $1,421,500. And that would be committed directly to the debt service that I mentioned for the fire apparatus and sewer infrastructure. No transfers to the enterprise funds. This is a significant change from last year, from FY26, where there was a significant amount of money transferred out to cover cost increases in some of the other enterprise funds. 2 positions have been frozen. That's something that we really looked at hard, was personnel costs as we went fund to fund. PXE, that's the airport. We fund the airport a certain amount basically every year. We were able to shift that out to T-SPLOST that we have with Peach County, which I thought was a very good use for that money. We did, and I know y'all were concerned about some of our contracts and things. We did review contracts and contractual obligations going into this. One of the contracts that we decided to recommend removing is the agility recovery contract that Fire had. It is one of those contracts where it locked you in, and they were proposing rate increases again this year. And come to find out, it's really just you're paying for a reservation for their service. If we were to actually have to utilize agility recovery, it would cost around $32,000 per month. Are y'all familiar with this? All right, so agility recovery, we've had this contract for a number of years. It's basically if there is a natural disaster that were to knock out or destroy some of our facilities and basically take away our ability to operate, this company would come in with essentially semi-truck trailers with workstations in them and have the internet, generators, all that sort of stuff, and set it up to where we can start working again. I'm kind of thinking, if there's a big disaster or whatever, we're not going to have 48 people sitting at workstations in a trailer. They're going to be out working. And with the county's new EOC that they constructed on Lake Joy Road, they would provide us space should we need it to conduct our operations and things like that. We just have excellent partnerships with the county and with the Board of Education, and they have a lot of facilities throughout the area. So if something were to happen to our facilities, they would gladly let us utilize space, and that would be a good thing.
Isn't this something we discussed year and a half ago after Hurricane Helene
Yes,
swept
sir.
through?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you.
And Chief Everidge might let us use that RV for the mobile command center.
Well, it's up for bid right now,
Right, maybe we need to hold on to that.
Just a couple of other small things I thought might be of interest to you all. The Perry Area Chamber requested that we consider what they call an all-in membership this year. It actually makes sense financially. We have a number of folks attend Chamber of Commerce events. They have numerous events that, basically you have to pay to get into, all that. So they are proposing a all-in membership that would allow any City of Perry employee or elected official to attend basically any event they want. And it was just a slight increase in annual cost. Funding for the comprehensive plan, and this, interestingly, we have seen a steady decline in our taxes from liquor, wine, and beer. So I think that kind of coincides with what people have seen with national trends and less drinking and stuff. For each of the funds, we provided a breakdown. You can see here in this pie chart or donut chart that outlines the various uses for each of the funds. For the general fund, of course, you have a variety of centralized functions that the city performs, including public works, public safety, which is the largest cost out of our general fund, housing and economic development, that's like Main Street, economic development function, some community development, health and welfare, just in case you're wondering, that's the residential assistance program I mentioned. General government expenditures, which are some of the more centralized functions like mayor and council, city manager, finance, that sort of thing. And then capital, that's some of our capital lease debt that we have, and then principal and interest for some of the PPFA functions. And then a budgeted reserve in here for $567,500. And I'm not going to go through each of those for you. I know y'all are probably like, why is he doing that? But just wanted to let you know what's in here. The proposed revenue increases, again, the millage rate increase being proposed at 1.217 mils for debt service specifically. In order to make the really the fire fund and the water fund work, shifting out that debt and covering that debt with ad valorem tax revenues, we thought was a good option. Otherwise, you'd be looking at some other, possible rate increases, that sort of thing, to cover those debt service costs. And we really like the idea of this as it relates to the potential floss here in Houston County. As you are all aware, this month there is a vote for the floss here in Houston County. Right now, they're anticipating a rollback of 3.58 mils for all property owners in the city of Perry. And if that occurs, and we were to increase our millage rate, there would still be a net reduction for Perry property owners. And the city has not increased our millage rate since 2012. So just again, trying to keep up. The Fire Protection Fund sustained at current revenues. There is no rate increase being proposed. We were able to shift out that PPFA debt service for that $2.7 million apparatus to the general fund. And, sorry, y'all. And then also, too, something I thought was very interesting, and this was Mr. Worthington's idea, very good idea. We had a truck leased, and really, I think y'all remember over the past couple of years, we purchased 3 fire trucks, right? It was just poor timing. In our SPLOST that we now have, there was $3.5 million committed to public safety equipment. And I'm sure the chiefs have different ideas, but I'm looking at that and I'm like, well, what are we going to do with that, So going back and covering some of the costs we've already incurred and paying off that lease and saving those interest payments and stuff, that's what I think a very excellent use of SPLOST, because that's exactly what you should be purchasing with SPLOST, is equipment such as that. Of course, the fire fund is almost completely fire operations. Hotel motel fund is in good shape. We are seeing generally annual increases in revenues associated with this fund. Interestingly, there is a 120% increase from online booking services that we are budgeting for this year. And also looking at it, Nanya's probably quite interested in that, we are projecting a decline in revenues from some of our legacy hotel properties, actually a majority of those. So just kind of FYI for you all. Something too that we are excited to get into place with the CVB is a DMO agreement that formalizes and outlines the responsibilities associated with having a hotel motel tax fund. This is just a straight up breakdown of the requirements associated with the state law governing hotel motel taxes. Straight breakdown: general purpose 37.5%, tourism product development 18.75%, and then TCT, tourism convention and trade shows, at 43.75%. That's the direct allocation that we provide to the CVB on an annual basis. The solid waste fund. Not a lot really here. You all will recall that with the Ryland contract, the costs increased here. Last year, we decided to cover those costs with a transfer in from the general fund. This year, we are actually proposing a slight increase here of 4%. And right now, what we're thinking is there will be a CPI rate adjustment of 5%. That's associated with our contract with Ryland, and then possible fuel surcharge in addition to that. So again, just trying to keep up with the increased costs on an annual basis. A breakdown of what the solid waste fund goes towards. Obviously, container service and toter solid waste service is primarily the Ryland contract. Yard bulk collection, that's our folks that go around in knuckle boom trucks. And then the various other costs there.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
On that slide, what would the depreciation, what falls under that for solid waste? Would that be like the knuckle boom trucks depreciation?
Primarily, I guess it would be knuckle boom trucks. We also operate a transfer station that has some capital equipment associated there. Mr. Worthington, do you have any idea what that would be outside of those two items?
Thank you.
Proposing right now a 4% rate increase for solid waste services. You can see that it's estimated to generate $189,800 for the next year. Again, not even covering the cost increases, but still trying to keep up a little bit with CPI. The stormwater fund is in fairly good shape, sustained at current revenues, no rate increase being proposed. You can see there a breakdown of the stormwater fund. Water fund. Water fund, we are proposing additional revenues totaling $321,900. Those would come from a 2.5% increase in consumption rates, so that's water and sewer for existing customers, and then a 5% increase in the rates associated with account activation. That's like the on-off charge, that sort of thing, when people come in and set up a new account or transfer an account to a different person. With the water fund, as y'all saw with Mr. Worthington's preliminary budget information back in April, it was pretty far off. So we had to make some shifts here. Some of the primary ones were shifting some personnel costs associated with the line locate crew and the right-of-way crew. Shifted that over to gas because they share similar functions and they perform the same sort of activities for both of those fund operations. PPFA debt, that is part of that millage rate increase that we've been talking about. 48% increase in funding has been budgeted for water purchase from Houston County. As you're all aware, they're going up in a graduated scale fiscal year after fiscal year with their water costs to fund some of their capital improvements, and then funding for an entire year for the new Ahieris wastewater reclamation facility. Those are some of the big cost increases there. With the water fund, the big ones obviously are water provision, wastewater treatment. In the water provision, that includes the Houston County Water, and then it includes our contract with ESG and facility operations. And then for wastewater treatment, obviously our ESG contract there, facilities, including the new Ahieris wastewater reclamation facility. Still a fair amount of debt service left in the water fund, and then various other kind of more administrative costs, smaller costs. Just a little bit more on the proposed revenue increases. We've pretty much already covered that. Natural gas fund, the gas fund, sustained at current revenues, no rate increases proposed. The big one here is going to be funding the relocation of regulator stations, and we have included that. As you're aware, we're under a consent order from the PSC to get that done. The costs there, to a certain extent, we're a bit of a pass-through. You know, we pay for our supply directly and then provide it out to our customers. And then impact to the average customer. I know you all kind of like to see what the proposed revenue increases really mean to folks out there. Very cognizant of costs. Very cognizant that you know, our residents, our businesses are experiencing cost increases basically everywhere, and that's why we try to keep it low. In regards to what we're proposing for rate increases, and you can see to the average customer that uses 50 units of water, which is 5,000 gallons on a monthly basis, they would see a monthly difference in their bill of $3.07. So we'd like to think that that's fairly moderate. One of the big things, and I know it was big with Mr. Worthington and I in the departments, but I know it was very big with you all as well, is where can we reduce costs? I know Mr. Worthington and I both, I think, went through every line of the budget trying to identify where we can save money. There were a number of areas that were identified that, again, kind of going back to what I mentioned with Snowball, there were some cost creeps, budget creeps in there, and we were hopefully able to kind of rein those in and reduce costs back to what we felt was adequate, and that still allowed our departments to continue to function at a high level. We were looking at, generally, prior to putting together the budget, around $1.1 million increase over FY26 in personnel costs. So we know we had to do some work there. We were able to reduce overtime costs across the various funds. We are evaluating when positions come open, whether or not those positions need to be filled, whether or not they need to be filled right away. We have put into place and will be formalizing limitations relative to in-classification adjustments and limitations relative to tuition reimbursement. Now, this kind of goes back to what I mentioned about continuing to invest in our employees. I don't want it to be misconstrued that we're not going to continue to invest in our employees, because we are. There are some significant adjustments to individual salaries that are coming out of our in-classification adjustment program. And that is where employees take training courses, they get certifications, that sort of thing, and then they receive increases in their base salary, right? We did not really have any limitations on that on an annual basis. Now, some of the departments did, right? But we were seeing escalating costs as it relates to salaries because of our in-classification adjustment program. It's a balance. You know, I don't want it to, again, drive folks away or make them go to Houston County or Warner Robins, that sort of thing. But we had to do something. And right now, with the proposed 1% cost of living adjustment, the proposed 1% eligibility for merit increases, and then what we're saying is 3% in classification adjustment availability for each employee, that will be able to see a significant reduction in increasing salaries year after year. We also had another situation in the tuition reimbursement program where there weren't a whole lot of guardrails in regards to the types of programs we would pay for. So we had employees that were going to private institutions and they were being reimbursed for their tuition costs. Sometimes that was obviously very costly. Or out-of-state institutions, that sort of thing. And I don't think that's equitable. I think there needs to be a standardized amount available for our employees if they want to go back to school, get training, that sort of thing. And that's going to be set at a federal level where we wouldn't incur any additional tax liabilities associated with that. And it would generally cover the costs associated with an in-state public institution, which I think is what we're going for here. And then always looking at healthcare costs, very expensive. We will review those as necessary, hopefully at mid-year this year, to see if there's anything that needs to be changed with that. If you look at the operating column here, across all of the funds, this is something that we saw where there was a fair amount of budget creep. And we were able to go in there and reduce a lot of these costs associated with operating supplies, maintenance repair items, equipment. And then if you look at our parks, there were actually a lot of carrying costs that were hanging out there that were budgeted that weren't being utilized, so recapturing those costs as well. And then just the table again. So that is the presentation. I did want to go through your budget books very briefly with you. It's a lot of the same information. Of course, there is a cover letter from me kind of outlining some of the highlights for the budget as is being proposed. I'm not going to go through that with you all. I know you all can read. And then, of course, going through it, Exhibit A has the operating budget summary, which is what you see right now on the screen. And then there is a consolidated budget provided to you all that goes into a bit greater detail in regards to each of the funds and the expenditures. Let's see. On page 8, you will see what we call a request summary. This is an outline of all of the requests that we received from the departments for funding for FY27. And it shows whether or not those requests are currently being recommended for funding or not. So if you look at the first one, the general fund, you can see that we are recommending approximately $190,000 worth of additional costs. Now, I want to clarify something here. Again, going back to what do you have to have and what would you like to have sort of deal. Our focus as we went through this were a couple of things. Contractual obligations. We know there are going to be increases in contractual obligations year after year, so we accounted for those. The other is safety. Public safety and employee safety. And we generally funded all of those as well, just to make sure that our folks are being able to do what they need out there in a safe manner. Because if looking at it from my perspective, and I'm sure the department heads will disagree, but our departments have been well funded for years and continue to be well funded. And they have, in my opinion, generally all of the resources and equipment, that sort of stuff, that they need to perform at a high level. Because if you look at them, they are performing at a high level. And so when I see these increasing things, like, yeah, well, I kind of get why you might want that or why we might need that in the future. But right now, especially over the next couple of years, when we do have a lot of this, debt service coming on and stuff, we need to be cognizant of, again, that kind of budget creep that occurs. Some of the items, and kind of following up on that, you can see like the increase in Civic Plus support fee for the city clerk. We got to have that. Municipal court has seen a significant increase in security service and interpreter services, so of course we fund that. Right now in community development, obviously there's a time of transition So we're funding an increase in support from a contractor to come in and work with them on building inspections, planning review, and a plan review, and planning and zoning administrative items. On page 9, you start to get into some of the public safety stuff I was talking about. I do not want to be the city manager that was up here and did not provide the proper amount of turnout gear, to our firefighters. I do not want to be the city manager that's recommending that our police department does not get new safety vests, that sort of stuff. So obviously, a lot of that, again, is funded.
These are increases over and above what they
What's
currently
currently
get.
budgeted. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to hold my questions until you get to the end. I've got some questions on several pages.
Sure.
So, but I don't want to break your stride.
And then if you look on page 11, you can see that for general fund, we did not recommend $2.8 million in requested costs. And this runs the gamut, as you might imagine. There were a number of positions that were requested, a whole bunch of software, capital equipment, that sort of thing. I would like to draw your attention, though, to page 15. Starting with you see fixed assets there. There are a lot of projects that were requested that probably should be funded or are going to have to be funded very soon. This building right here, we're still utilizing the same boiler and cooling tower that have probably been here for 30, 35 years. And they are on their last legs, and that would be a significant expense to us. The pole barns at Public Works, every time it's windy, they probably lose a panel or two, and those panels are flying across the yard, and it's kind of a safety issue. And then stormwater, a street sweeper, right? We have a street sweeper. I think it's pretty much on its last legs, and those things are expensive. And street sweeper, that's one of those things that we have to have in operation for our MS4 permitting. We have to go out there and provide a certain amount of street sweeping on a daily basis. I'm not going to go through all of these. You have them, you see them. If there are specific items that you have questions about, I'd imagine there might be specific items that you have, that you maybe think should be funded or should not be funded. Be happy to receive that input from you all. And then the last thing on page 25, you have basically just fund summaries, again, providing a higher level of detail for each of the funds. I think it has been a very excellent process up to this point in time. I appreciate the department heads. I appreciate Mr. Worthington and the assistance he's provided. And I appreciate, all of you for being supportive and providing guidance early on in the process.
Mr. Moody, you had some questions, you said?
Yes, sir. Thank you for putting this together, Mr. Smith, Mr. Worthington. But I did have a few questions, and like I said, I hated to interrupt Mr. Smith, but just a couple of things I've got question marks next to. On page 8, under the general fund request summary, you're asking for an increase for buzzard drop communications department of $5,600, but then on page 11 you don't recommend an increase for buzzard drop by $3,000. How does that reconcile? What does that mean?
It's my understanding for these event increases here, the primary driver is the rental of that nice new stage. So for the buzzer drop here, and I'd have to look at the detail, but I believe this would be the funding for the stage, but not funding something else that may have been requested for the buzzer drop.
So it's not necessarily the communications department as far as getting the word out through media, social media, or...
No, sir. It's just that the communications department houses our special events division. So the communications is just the department
Ms. Clark is over events.
Okay. Okay. Same thing with increase for 4th of July event, 10,300. Is the cost of doing business increasing so much that we're having to increase by $10,000 for that event?
Again, the main driver for the events is the new stage rental.
Okay.
That it's fairly expensive, but it's nice, and it was getting to a point where we would not be able to have bands and live music and things if we did not do something about our stage setup and situation. The stage that we have been utilizing up to this point in time, and we've used the new stage a couple of times, was built in-house. It's not, I mean, you know, you really shouldn't be using it, quite honestly. It's more of a liability than anything. And it did not have adequate cover. It did not have adequate like space and electricity type stuff for the bands. So a lot of the bands were basically saying, we're not going to use that because if we get set up in there and a storm comes through, it would ruin all their equipment. So that's why we had to look at something a little bit better, a little bit more robust to kind of grow with our events, if you will.
Okay, and one other question. Just one last question. On page 10, you recommend an increase for replacement armor plates for police support services. What does of 23,400? What are the armor plates? Where do those go?
Chief's going to answer that for you.
Yes, sir. If you're familiar, last few months, one Robbins PD officer was shot with an AK-47. The armor that we wear every day will not stop that round. They have now, the city of Perry has some armor rifle plates that you can, if you know it's coming, you can go put it on. It's about 2.5 inches thick, weighs about 35 pounds, that the officer can wear if you know you're going to that incident. The new plates that we were talking about that saved the one Robbins officer's life is less than 1/2 inch thick, weighs about 4.5 pounds, and he wears it inside of his vest. That officer would not be here today, and the cost has come down tremendously. 5 years ago was something that was not that nice. Would have been fire department $75,000-$80,000. So,
Okay, thank you, Chief.
all right.
Just a question, Mr. Smith, do we include in the 4th of July the increase that we have received from the county? Because I know you're increasing it 10,000, but we also got a contribution of 15,000 from them. So
I don't know if that's included in this or not, but it would offset the cost, obviously, if once we receive that money. Did we include the donation from the county? Yeah.
On the revenue side, it is not included.
yes, sir. The county was gracious enough that they have sent us a check for $15,000 for our 4th of July celebration. So
Can I expand on the chief's answer to the
yes.
requests? I think Mr. McGee asked why it was shown as police support services. Over in our police department, a lot of the expenses that are applicable to the entire department actually get costed to their support services division. That includes a lot of their software, but also the bulletproof vests, because every officer, regardless of their division, will get one of those bulletproof vests. So it's just purchased under the support services because that's the captain who's in charge of getting those ordered, getting them fitted, and all that stuff. So instead of trying to cost it out to each individual officer's cost center and line item, that just gets charged all in one place, which is the support services line item.
Okay, and of course I support keeping our professionals safe. I just needed a
Sure.
breakdown of what that was.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just I would guess several general observations on the budget. First, I want to say thank you for the great work of just assembling all of these numbers together. You all have been doing this, I guess, by what you've said, for about 4 months. And I don't know about you, but I've only seen it for 4 days, and yet my eyes are already glazing over a bit. So thanks for your diligence to that. Especially just a couple of comments on the funds. I'm especially pleased to see that we're able to do the fire fund where we're matching revenue to the expense of that. Glad to see that happen with the gas fund. The one that still I think about a lot and have concerns on the water fund, for which we're asking for a rate increase, and or you all are asking for a rate increase, as well as the solid waste. And I did a little analysis here on the water, so I'd like to. I tried to get this on the docket so we could have it on the slides, but I didn't. But I've got a handout here, so I'd like to maybe just go through this so you can understand where this comes from. And Miss Annie, I don't know if you can hand these out to the staff and anybody else that would like to see this. But I tried to use the document here that is in the PowerPoint, which is really good. By the way, this PowerPoint is the best thing I've ever seen for a budget presentation. Thank you for that. The diagrams really work. The circle diagrams really work well because they include the amounts of money, not some percent, so we don't have to do a lot of arithmetic. So I really appreciate that. But on the water, the wastewater, I may have handed my copy away. Miss Annie, can I have one? Or let me just borrow this one here. We'll look at this. On the water fund, I took the number that was given to us 2 weeks ago from Mr. Worthington. There was an expected revenue of $14 million, $14,763,900. Now there was a little bit of excess, I think $148,000. I didn't even bother with that at this point. According to the numbers here, what I did was I took that $14.7 million, I subtracted away the debt service, and you had a block here that said other financing. I didn't know if that still meant PPF money or if that was debt, but I did include it there. In the bottom line, it wouldn't make any difference. But I came out here with debt services really of $5,170,800. When I subtracted away the debt service and the depreciation that is listed here at $1,927,000, the operations, the rest of the operations add up to $9,844,500. So taking away the debt service to operate our wastewater treatment system in this water fund, it's a cost of $11,772,400. When I compare that to the expected revenue, I took the expected revenue, I subtracted away what I call the all operations. That's both the depreciation and the operations. I did that subtraction, and it leaves a surplus of $2.991 million. If I took the expected revenue and just subtracted away the operations money, assuming we chose not to use or expense depreciation in this year, that would leave a surplus of $4.9 million. So I went over to the debt and I compared those two numbers. So the debt again is $5,170,800. If I subtracted away the surplus of $2,991,500, that would leave a deficit yet to be made up in that fund of $2,179,300. That's deficit one. If I subtracted away the other number I had where I subtracted only operations from expected revenue, and I subtracted the debt of $5.2 million, subtracted away the 4.9 million that would be surplus. That would leave only a deficit to be made up of $251,400. So I look at that, and that is just my observations of going through, using your numbers to do some basic arithmetic, and so that's a thought regarding requests for rate increases on that. So that was water fund. I also did the same thing regarding the solid waste fund. So again, if I could hand this one out as too, and again, I apologize that we didn't have the chance to put these onto the slides. We can certainly include these in the minutes, I hope.
Mayor, while those are being handed out, is it all right if can I ask Mayor Pro Tem a question about this previous slide?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem
Yes,
Peterson, on the numbers, how do you propose that the debt service be covered? Because you took it out of the numbers. How would that be covered?
Well, there's several ways probably the debt service could be met, depending on, if we didn't even count the depreciation, and I know that probably violates best practices, but again, I'm talking about these things for a 1-year period. If we didn't count the depreciation in there, it looks like we have, I'm sorry, I'm on solid waste, excuse me, this is the one I need here. If we didn't count the depreciation, we'd only have a deficit of $251,400 to be made. So perhaps SPLOST funds could be used within this. Perhaps general revenue could be used. That's not a lot of money to be made up. The first deficit, if we count depreciation, that's a balance of $2,179,300. That's a much bigger deficit, and again, we do have SPLOST funds that can go toward water sewer. That would be an option. Again, general revenue, although I know we hate to use that, but that's a possibility.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
But one of my concerns is that you're continuing to burn through cash, and we really don't operate the city on a year-to-year basis. It's a continuing basis, so whatever decision you make today is going to have an impact multiple years down the road. And I think if you look at the proposed budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the $4 million that you have in ending cash does incorporate utilizing depreciation to cover that. That does not include depreciation.
That's correct.
Because in your numbers, you've already.
Expenses been added back into that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Moving on to the, sorry about that. Moving on to the solid waste fund. I did the same thing. I took Mr. Worthington's, by the way, he has been incredible in providing information. I mean, and I'm going back to questions I started with probably last September or October, thinking through how do we pay off the $50 million wastewater treatment plant. So I'm very grateful here. But according to what we heard 2 weeks ago in that expected revenue, the expected revenue was $4,747,600. Now there was a little bit of extra revenue that is also anticipated that takes that up to $4.8 million. Again, from the $5,023,700, I took away the debt, which is $238,000. By the way, there was no number actually given for the administrative solid waste that I could find. I kept adding all the numbers and getting 5,009,000. So I just did some subtraction. I assume here that the administration solid waste expense is $14,700. But I took away the debt from that grand total, and then I found that we had depreciation of $149,000, and that left pure operations numbers at $4,636,400. If we add those together, apart from debt, the operations for our solid waste are $4,785,700. Compared that to the revenue that is expected. So if I took all of the revenue, the $4.8 million of revenue, and subtracted away all of our operations, the $4,785,700. Subtract those two numbers, it leaves a surplus there of $28,800. If we just did that number with expected revenue and subtract away just the operations, that would leave even a greater surplus of $111,200. So in each of those two cases, if we take the $28,800 surplus, we'd still have to make up $209,200 in that fund to balance that out. If we took the $111,200 surplus, we would still be left with needing to make up somehow $126,800. So that kind of surprised me. I was expecting a greater deficit with those numbers. So, I would say those, just kind of going through those funds with the anticipated revenues and the expenses that are listed, they're really they seem to be in pretty good shape. And, a big question is, what do we do with depreciation? Do we count that or not? But regardless of that, those are some achievable numbers. So, I look at this and this overall budget, and as much as I really appreciate the great work that's been done, and I think I've said this before, it is still my goal. I am not in favor of any rate increases or fee increases, or at this point even millage increases. So, and I hear from a lot of citizens and stuff, and I recently spoke at one meeting, and I was amazed how well people were aware of our reluctance to raise any rates or fees or millages, and they were so thankful we had not. And I hear from others that say they don't want to see that. Of course, nobody wants to see it. I understand that. So that would be my position at this point. As much as I appreciate the work, I guess my request would be to take this back to the drawing board and rework a budget that does not include those increases that you've requested. And that's my opinion.
Thank you for putting these pie charts together.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for putting these numbers together.
My pleasure.
The water fund and solid waste fund.
They're all right there in front of us on the chart. So,
I'm sitting here and listening, and I just want to say to our finance committee and to the one that put the budget together, I feel like that I can appreciate what Mayor Pro Tem is saying, but I'm not in agreement with him. And the reason I'm not in agreement with him, we have to allow, and I really believe this here, the people who we got in position, and that I would listen to our manager, I don't think they finished with the budget yet. And what they have to do is bring back to us. And I can feel that you're doing through everything that you're saying, and you're bringing it to us and letting us know how you feel. I can respect that. But the main thing that I want to say is that we have people in position to bring stuff to us, and they look at each situation and the way it goes. I know we have to consider it, we have to weigh it, and I think the best thing is to do at the final analysis, when we get through the whole operation or the position, everything, then I think that you can look at it from that point of view and say, this is this, this is this. But I feel that we have to respect this, my personal opinion, just like your personal opinion, that we have to respect people that we got in position who doing the job for the city, to try to let them finish what they're doing. And I think we can come back and make our point, what we feel or what we think. And I just want to put that on record, that I'm personally not in agreement with you, and I know you have your own opinion, like everybody else on us, we all do. And I'm just saying, I want that to go on record, that I feel that we need to wait until they get through with the budget, and then we can make our decision, yay or nay, or whatever I think we need to say.
Isn't this the proposed budget? I mean, this is what administration has proposed as the fiscal 27 budget.
I know this is a proposed budget, but they're not through with it. They're proposing it, and the thing is that, and I'm sure they can appreciate what he's just saying, and I'm sure they'll go right back through it, and they will bring out or say what is being said. And this is the thing about a lot of time that we have to be able to understand that going forward. You know what I mean? And just like you said, Mr. Moody, this is a proposed budget in which what we're looking at. But then the thing is that, and you saying that I know they got more things to do, and that's a good thing that we can. And I know that that's what you're doing, Mayor Pro Tem, that you expressing how you feel about your point, and I can receive that. And I feel like I was saying what I feel, you know what I mean? And that's one of the things that is very valuable in us going forward. And we're working, and we all want to be on the same page when we go forward. And I think this is a good thing that we can, we can have this conversation, you know what I mean? And we can speak how we feel or how we express and going forward. And I think this is very valuable for us. And I know we got quite a responsibility, and like I said, taking care of the spouse and taking care of T-Form, taking care of everything that we got to do so that we can help our community, be better. And I know sooner or later they're going to have to have an input somewhere along the line, how they feel about what we're doing, you know what I mean?
I just have one thing to add to Councilman Peterson's point. I concur mostly with him, and I do appreciate all of the hard work that went into this. I do, and I certainly don't mean any disrespect to any of our department heads who have worked so hard on this, or our city manager whatsoever. I think I'm expressing my preference that I would still like to see a budget with no rate increases. And I would ask about the SPLOST money that we have in the water fund of $4.5 million. And from what I understand, there's $276,000 that is being generated from the proposed 2.5% increase. Is that correct?
I have the number somewhere in here.
I think that's right.
But Mr. Smith, it's my understanding you can't use SPLOST for operating funds.
That's correct, not for operating funds.
But for debt service, right?
It could be used for debt service, yes.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is I would like for that to be considered, is all. And that's all I have to add.
Just a clarification for me, what I heard you say was that you were not supportive of a millage increase or any rate increases, and that, in my mind, goes to the fact that we're going to burn through another $2.5 million of cash for the city in our reserves. We burnt through mid-year. You voted to use $750,000 to pay for funds that were not completely funded by rates of people using consumption. And now you're talking about taking another 1.9 plus 1.4, about $2.5 million out of the reserves.
Mr. Jones, the total on that was $321,900.
Included the 45,000 for the adjustment fee in new activation accounts.
Yes,
Okay,
It's 276.
it was 276 without it. I'm just talking about the new 276. The 45 would be new growth paying for itself. So that's where I'm at on that.
My thoughts are, I agree with Mr. Jones. I like that idea of using SPLOST for the debt payment. And I'm also, I'm inclined to agree with Mayor Pro Tem Peterson on his proposal. I'm not inclined to vote for anything that would have rate, fee, or millage rate increases.
So ask the question, what you're talking about is burning through $2.5 million of cash reserves. That's what you're looking to do.
Well, I would hope we didn't have to burn through that.
Why would you not? I don't know how you're going to pay your bills, because those are the numbers that have been presented that you're required in your budget to pay.
Well, as Reverend King indicated, this is we're asking. This is a proposal, and administration is still working on this budget. This isn't the final budget, so I would respectfully ask the administration to go back and find some more cuts, some more ways to pay for this.
Could I make a statement? I just want to say to us, and I know that the cost of living and everything is going up, and I know, like the mayor talking about the cash we got reserved, and the main thing is that what's going to happen, and y'all know things are going up, we're looking at it ourselves with the gas prices and everything. What's going to happen when we get to a point that are we going to have to go back to our property tax and raise it, or what we're going to have to do to come back into compliance where we at if we don't keep knowing our cash and saving in a process that we can use. And so I think going forward, and I think each one of us in our own homes, that's another thing we have to consider. Prices study going up, and I know for the city things keep going up. And so the thing is that I know it's been 2012 since we went up on property taxes. You know, we hadn't been up on property tax. We've been keeping that down. But then if all of a sudden things start getting real high, and I know we're going to have a call meeting, and we're going to have to make a decision. What are we going to do? This thing is, you know, it's getting out of hand. We're going to have to come up with some way, and I can appreciate our administration, and like you saying, Mayor Pro Tem, we can look at things at a point of view, but going back to the point that the mayor keep making, what's going to happen? And I think we got to have to, like you said, we got to keep a cap on this thing. We got to be able to manage this thing to a point as we go forward. You know, this is where we got to hold it at. We got to be able to hold things up. Where the money going to come from? If one of the trucks break down or something else happen, you know what I mean? So we got to be able to have money that we could do things that keep moving, because that's life. Like when my car break down, I got to have some money to be able to fix my car. You know, if not, I'm gonna have to be walking. You know what I mean? So it's just one of them situations that we got to be coherent here, and we got to go forward in a positive way that we can help the city move forward, and making sure that we, as council members, we do the right thing to enhance our community and help the people in our community move forward, that we can have the safety and the protection and what we need to keep this community. And we know right now this community is growing faster than anything you can think of. People coming from everywhere. Why? They like Perry. And so, because we have been doing a wonderful job, let us continue to move forward and do a great work to enhance our people so they can come forward and they can support us, and we can get more revenue when we get more people. Thank you.
Well, to your point, I thank you for those comments, Reverend King. I have nothing but the utmost respect for you. And I appreciate you making that point. But to your point, if I have an expense, if the Moody budget has an expense, I need a new air conditioner, or I need a transmission on my Honda, something like that, hot water heater. I can't come to the city and say, hey, I need an increase in my stipend for serving up here. And I certainly can't approach Office of OPM, Office of Personnel Management, and ask them to get for a raise in my retirement. So I just have to make cuts elsewhere to balance the budget.
I don't want to belabor the point here, but I think this might be a nice time for y'all to review with us what the next steps are with this, because I think, like Reverend King mentioned, this is the first step in the proposal for this, and this is the time that's intended for us to be able to bring our thoughts to you and give you guidance, right, moving forward with this. You made this English teacher be able to understand the budget. Thank you for doing that. That is a feat in and of itself. And I do appreciate all of the work that our departments have done. It is obvious from looking not just at this budget, but looking at last year's budget as well, that the things that were being requested were things that were not just superfluous, right? And there's a reason those things are requested. So I appreciate the bring it to the table and the line-by-line work that you guys did, but also, of course, our department chairs as well. I have some specific questions, but I don't think that now is the time to get into the weeds. So I will be emailing y'all this week to ask, just and partially because I'm new, and so this is a learning curve for me here. But I do think we need to get in the stage business. Stages are that expensive. So, but I would like, personally, I would like to continue to work toward, as we work through this budget, I would like to see that we hold steady and not have rate and fee increases. And as we move into that, like thinking through, like you were saying, there are things that are wants and there are things that are needs. And this is a lean year, right? As we see, our connection fees have been reduced for our developers, and that has not been adjusted. So, I was wondering if that would be something that we might consider within this, is taking another look back at that schedule that we set forth with connection fees to see if that would be a place where we might be able to tap into some increased revenue, because where I see that's been reduced previous to me in this seat, I don't see where it's been reduced outside of us just absolutely saying absolutely not. For their fees and rates for our residents. So I don't know kind of how that plays into the picture, or if that's something that's been considered with that. So maybe we could get kind of a look at what would the influence be. Like with the Raftelis report, they said this is what will happen if you do it this way, right? Like, or if you look at it this way. There's not a one way, and I don't like fear mongering, and I don't like well, this means this, because in a budget, if you move this piece, then you adjust over here, right? There are multiple ways to get to the same destination. So I'd just like to see what some of those ways might be when we put, like Mr. Jones mentioned, our SPLOST money into account, and any other types of adjustments that can be made to get us there as we're looking through these phases of this proposal process. That's all.
Thank you.
I have a couple of comments and a question. Mr. Smith, with this floss, what did you say? When would that be decided on?
The vote is this month.
So it's pretty quick. Okay. I do think that nobody on this council or anywhere in the city administration wants to increase rates, but I do think we have an obligation to keep this city in good standing as far as future years, future issues down the road. And I don't know how we can, as a city, sit still financially and not raise rates when, like, everything else is going up. I think one item I saw, and I think I've mentioned it before, in 2022 or 2023, our electricity cost us $1 million, and I think last year it was 1.9. And that kind of stuck out to me. So how do we keep up? And I certainly do not want to raise rates or the millage rate, but I don't know how we can be fiscally responsible 3 or 4 years down the road if we don't. And what I prefer not to do is for our citizens to be hit with no rate increases for 2 years and then a 30% rate increase. I think the county has done that recently. So I think that's something to consider also. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm 62 years old, and I think I'm going to say it. And I'm a granddaddy, and I'm a pretty happy guy right now. So it's hard to make me mad, and I'm not mad now. And I hope Robert Smith does not take this the wrong way, because I've not talked to Robert since the last meeting. So it's going to put him in a precarious situation when I say this. But I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of Robert Smith and Mitchell Worthington. And they study over this, and they pour their heart and soul into it, and we come up here and shoot holes in it. And I don't think there's a malice bone in Robert Smith's body. I think he wants what's best for this city. I think he wants what's best for this whole community. And I don't think there's any if he could not put a rate increase in this budget, I feel pretty confident he wouldn't, because he pays taxes here, and he doesn't want to bomb the citizens with rate increases. So I think this is a fair proposed budget. And yes, we could maybe take splash money here, but eventually you're not going to have that money to do projects that we depend on that for, that is can be very timely when you need a project done. So I just hope that we can put ourselves in Robert's shoes. We hired him to run this city, and he is currently not running it. We're trying to run it, and that's not good to me. Yes, we're to be overseers and to be big picture, but that's my opinion, and that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Questions? There was a question from Dr. Faust relative to the process, and that didn't get answered.
Sounds like we got some work to do. Good input. I certainly appreciate the feedback and the conversation and all that sort of thing. I took copious notes. I'm assuming Mr. Worthington did it as well. I think we understand where each of you is coming from, and we'll be working over the next basically month, through the hearings, or not formal hearings, but through the meetings with the department heads, outside agencies, that sort of thing, and working to put together something that may be a bit more palatable as it relates to rates and all that sort of stuff. So we'll work on this and continue to receive input and get something back to you.
I guess formally next steps are at your next work session and meeting. The second meeting is in May. Department heads, outside agencies will have the opportunity to present to you kind of what they requested, what they think if they didn't get something funded, why it should have, that kind of thing. And then at the first meeting in June, you're scheduled to have a public hearing. You guys have also in the past always passed the budget via ordinance.
Good. Other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you, Mr. Worthington. Appreciate the discussion. Item 5 are council member items. Dr. Faust? Robert?
Just one item, Mayor. I over the weekend got a couple of calls on, I guess, hydrant flushing, and I know the fire department does a great job of putting that out on Facebook, but I was just wondering if we use other means to do that. Yeah, like I know we do a great job of advertising all of our events and so forth through a variety of means, and I just didn't know if we did advertise this other ways too.
I can answer that to the best I can right now, but yes, sir, we do send that to the city communications manager. She puts it out definitely on social media. We have signs that we can put out in the area of the, say, subdivision or the roads that we're actually going to be flowing hydrants on. So we put signs out to let citizens know as well.
A couple other things too, Councilmember Jones, on that. We have discussed this a fair amount internally since we, had the issues last week. Two additional things. The first is including it possibly in the text message system. We're currently converting essentially over to Houston County's new system, so seeing how that might be able to do that. And then another thing would be scheduling. It's my understanding that the hydrants were flushed possibly during a kind of high demand time for some of the downtown restaurants. And, just scheduling better. And if we're going to flush hydrants, doing them during non-peak times for different types of areas and things would be beneficial, I think, too.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Albritton?
No.
Okay. Mr. Moody?
Yes, sir. To Mr. Jones's point, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for clarifying that. It was brought to my attention also that there was a downtown restaurant that was affected by the flushing. Is it possible, and I don't have to have an answer tonight, but maybe for follow-up, is it possible to do, say, in the downtown area, for example, could you do flushing as was mentioned at off-peak times, maybe overnight, I don't know, where it wouldn't affect operations for, and you don't have to answer now, Chief Parker, but.
Well, I don't mind answering now, but
okay.
Basically we try to flush the hydrants when ESG is working.
Okay.
That way if there's some damage that occurs, if a valve doesn't close back or something like that, they can come out and fix it during their regular scheduled hours. If we did it at night or on the weekends, then they'd have to come in on their off time or on overtime hours and do those kind of repairs. So we try to do it when they are actually working. We don't do anything after 4 o'clock in the afternoon now. So I'm not sure what peak hours would be. We try to do them in the morning when it's cool, and then before 4 o'clock in the afternoon we finish. So that's pretty much standard daily practice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Just one quick comment, and it's on the same point, because I received a call, whatever day that was, from we heard that Swanson Hotel, or the Swanson restaurant was in panic because of brown water coming into their place, and they were going to have to shut down. I called Mr. Shoemate. He immediately answered and immediately took action and sent people over there, and they assured the owner that this would go away and it would be fixed as soon as possible. So thank you so much for taking good action on that. Well done.
Thank you. Reverend King?
Just have one comment. I know I'm listening, and I think you're going back to the point of letting our citizens know when and when we cannot do certain things, you know what I mean, so they will know, you know what I mean, and like I said, it's certain times or certain hours that we got to be able to do something, and I know anytime after hours, and I know that's overtime, you know what I mean, and that if the city's involved, we got to pay somebody more money because that time and a half, because I know about overtime. So I just wanted to make that comment, and that and I can appreciate going back to all our members here of our input, and I know that going forward, I think I'm the oldest here as a council member, and I've seen a lot of them, but I know that going forward, we are united as a group, and we can accomplish what we set out to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, anything additional this evening?
No, sir.
Mr. Worthington?
Nothing.
Ms. Newby, anything for us this evening?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Item 6 are department head items. Ms. Wharton, anything from community development? Mr. Coates? Chief, anything?
Nothing additional, sir.
Okay, Chief Everidge?
Nothing further, sir.
Mr. Shoemate? Ms. Birdshaw? Ms. Clark?
Yes, sir, I'd love to. I want to take a moment to recognize the work that went into the budget book and the presentation that were presented to you tonight. This was a very fast turnaround, and I'm incredibly proud of the communications team for how they stepped up and delivered a very thoughtful product. So also like to thank Amber Howell for the presentation. I know that you gave some compliments earlier, and she did an amazing job on that. So I'd like to give her proper recognition.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Warren? No, sir. Okay, thank you. Item 7 are mayor items. Again, I remind everybody that our meetings are open to the public, and we encourage your interest and participation in those meetings. Our next meeting will be tomorrow, May the 5th, here in this chambers at 5 o'clock with our pre-council meeting, and at 6 o'clock our regular council meeting, and look forward to seeing each of you. We do have a need for executive session for personnel. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Motion is second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We are in executive session.